Welcome on inside yet another edition of the Business and Social Podcast powered by ST and Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we break down the digital, social, and marketing landscape. We usually bring some experts on, sometimes do some mini pods, maybe even a panel or so. But this time is no different. We're going to be talking to Monica Rigali. She's the global head of marketing and e-com over at JanSport and Eagle Creek. Will Kelly, producer Will, of course. Everybody had a JanSport back in high school. Is this just me, or you're a big JanSport guy, right?
I was never cool enough to have a JanSport, but JanSport was the backpack.
And it's funny, doing research for this pod too, I was just looking up because, after I graduated high school, you kind of move on. You don't know what the cool kids are doing anymore. And JanSport's ranked the number one high school backpack, even 20 some odd years later. So, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to her. She spent time at Nike, 10 years at Nike, went over to our friends over at Foxwell, and then recently over at VF Corp, overseeing JanSport and Eagle Creek. So really excited to kind of get her take on both the apparel product side that she's seen at Nike, JanSport, Eagle Creek, but also the entertainment and television side and what maybe some of those differences and similarities are across those different portfolios.
And also somebody who is responsible for two brands, one towards the younger generation and one towards the older generation. So kind of incorporating the same strategy, if you will, but to two completely different demos. So Pretty interesting.
TikTok for JanSport and good old Facebook for Eagle Creek, maybe.
Right.
So we'll talk to her about that. All right. So each and every show, we do the sports number thing, as our valued listeners know. So episode 59, I believe. And I've been saying this for the last 10 podcasts. After I think David Robinson number 50, I've been for a lifetime. 56, maybe I said Sean Merriman. 59, well, once again, I got nothing here.
Yeah, if we didn't have the help of the internet, we'd be here for forever trying to rack our brains for number 59.
I wonder if Stump the Swab can give us 3 59s just in a drunken sleep.
I think you can get him on Cameo, by the way. Maybe we'll have to pick him up for one of these. All right, number 59, you got Jack Ham, Tiger Tom Pistone, who I've...
Wait, can you give me the sports and years?
Jack Ham's NFL. I don't have a year for you. Tiger Tom of NASCAR fame, of course, and Seth Joyner also in the NFL. 59 is tough, man. Not a lot of 59s.
I think we should call this the Tiger Tom podcast.
Yeah,
because, what a cool name.
It also gets us into the NASCAR realm, which I don't think we get a lot of.
It's about time we gave NASCAR.
Old Tiger Tom.
Yeah, because not Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon at 24. We went Kobe there. Did we go Kobe 8 and 24? I'm sure we did.
8 was a long time ago. I don't remember. I'm pretty confident we did.
Can you make sure to go back today by end of the day, 5 p.m. Pacific, and let me know what we did at 8?
I'll give you.
Maybe we didn't even. You know what? Back at 8, I don't even know if we did the sports number thing.
We'll have to release that one of these days. A full 0 through 99.
At least you guys know what Will does on a daily basis now. Just going back, pulling clips. What we did back. What was that? 51 episodes ago. Okay. Let's get into it. Monica Rigali, she's the global head of marketing and e-commerce over at JanSport and Eagle Creek. Let's do it. All right, she is the global head of marketing and e-commerce over at JanSport and Eagle Creek. So excited to talk to Monica Rigali here on the Business Social Podcast. Monica, thanks so much for the time.
David, thanks for having me. This is really an awesome opportunity.
Of course. I always like to look in people's backgrounds. Are those some gold medals I see hanging, or what's going on? Maybe some scarves?
No, they're all medals.
Nice. Explain, will you, please?
Running is a huge passion of mine, and it's definitely something that has stoked a lot of ambition in all parts of my life, including business. And I have a lot of fun. I sort of do the runcation thing with a lot of my friends. We go out to Boston or New York or Chicago or wherever.
So full marathon is your style, or what are we talking?
I love the marathon. I
nice.
do. Yeah.
What about San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon? Have you tried that at all? Is that a decent one to do? Okay.
I actually ran my half marathon PR there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know we were talking before the show, and that you've I was kind of joking around, one of the craziest commutes in maybe the industry, where you had your home base here in Southern California, kind of in the San Diego, Southern California region. And then also you were kind of going to, was it Denver, Colorado on Monday through Friday basis? Because VF Corp kind of changed their headquarters there. So I like to start with kind of a random question every podcast. Tell me the best part of that commute and the worst part of that type of commute.
Absolutely. It's really not as bad as it may sound. I know a lot of folks who commute to the East Coast from the West Coast. So, really going to the Rocky Mountains from San Diego, it's a 2-hour flight.
Yeah.
And Denver is absolutely beautiful. So, when VF announced that it was moving its corporate headquarters to Denver and then moving the two brands that I work on, JanSport and Eagle Creek, to Denver, no brainer. My husband's job is here in Southern California. And so he comes out on the weekends to Denver, or I head back here on the weekends, and we kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, the snow and the beach. I mean, if you're going to pick two locations to have dual residency in, it's not too shabby.
Surf or ski.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to really dig in. I'm excited to talk to you because I think you have a very interesting background with serving as a marketing manager and marketing director at Nike and Fox, respectively. So I think I just really would love to get your thoughts as we get into the show, just the difference from, you're talking about entertainment television compared to apparel and vice versa. So I'm excited to dive into that. But VF Corp, so I think about 20 brands or more now underneath that umbrella. Of course, you focus on JanSport and Eagle Creek, but I guess to start, just let's start 10,000 foot view and then work our way down the funnel. But I love asking this question. How do you approach marketing? What's kind of your core belief on how to approach marketing?
I think it comes from being at Nike for over a decade, understanding that consumer marketing is very consumer centric. So you put the consumer first and then start to understand how to speak to that consumer in the coolest way possible. And Nike is brilliant at that. I definitely learned almost everything I know from that experience, but being able to bring that into leadership roles with both Fox and then at VF with JanSport and Eagle Creek has just kind of been taking that principle and then leading and inspiring others on my team to always be thinking about the consumer. How do we innovate to bring something interesting, cool, and relevant to their lives? And if we're not, if we're doing something that's cool to us, if we're just trying to beat a competitor by, saying something more interesting or changing the buckle on a bag or as, a zipper, if it doesn't help the consumer we're trying to either speak to or sell to, it's a waste of time. So,
well, yeah, we record this show in an interesting time. The day after the Super Bowl is when we record this. So I know for me, it was a big fan of the Michael B. Jordan Alexa spot. Thought they did a pretty good job. I'm sure as us marketers, we geek out over how these different brands show up for the Super Bowl. So I'd love to hear if you had any favorites last night.
I love the Alexa ad.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh my gosh. So that ad pushed the envelope of, that reality. Mm-hmm. It's okay to have a little fantasy.
Yeah.
And it's not just disrespectful to your husband, but you can still be thinking, like we do sometimes. So I really love that it pushed the edge of that relationship, that committed relationship between husband and wife, but then also really brought in, just humor and it was great. The dialogue, the copy was beautiful. That obviously partnering with a celebrity is never hurts. Mm-hmm. And obviously
I've always joked, it's like you're attractive when even heterosexual males are like, yeah, that's a pretty good looking dude. So Michael B. Jordan, I think checks that box. I was even thinking about, I think it was Oatly, which was ranked as one of the worst Super Bowl commercials. The CEO was sitting at his keyboard in the middle of like weeds or whatever it was, a farm, and very awkward singing. However, I think there's brilliance to that because I think they did it on purpose. I think let's be super annoying and kind of fingernails on the chalkboard. And if we get people talking about us, they always say like, negative press is better than no press type thing. So I think there's certain marketers that go down that route too.
We're talking about it today, right? Mm-hmm. Even if it was annoying, it was still memorable.
Exactly.
And that's part of the game, right? So marketing is just communication. It's understanding who you're talking to, speaking to them in the most compelling way, and then finding the channels where they're hanging out, and then making sure that you know where that is and how to speak to them through those channels. Yeah,
one question I always like to ask as well is how do you explain the difference between sales and marketing? Because when you look at even a brand like Nike, it's so much about that feeling, that community, kind of going after a greater good. But at the end of the day, you still got to sell shoes at Dick's Sporting Goods. So I'm sure sometimes the revenue of the sales team is like, yo, this is great and all, it's inspiring, but how is this, really moving apparel off the shelves? So how do you, throughout your career, how have you kind of explained the difference between sales and marketing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think it's pretty simple, really. If you think of the consumer journey in terms of a cycle, okay? Yeah. So the consumer life cycle is what they call it now. Part of that cycle is getting their attention, right, through marketing. Part of it is distribution through, selling it in, right? Mm-hmm. What sales does. But then we see them again in marketing when we try to sell it through. So getting their attention, leading them to places where they might find, your goods, and then creating that connection with them that makes them want to pick it up, try it on, and actually take it home if it's a wholesale model, which, as we know, is less and less frequent for our consumers now, right? Especially, where I live in the JanSport world, we're marketing to them online and we're reaching them through digital channels. So how do we reach them? Through, a scroll through Instagram or, going down into the wormhole of TikTok. How do we get to them?
Yeah.
Attention. We spend a lot of time on this. And then how do we make the connection that's emotional to them that makes them go, oh yeah, I'm about JanSport. They share my values. I want to wear their pack. I want to align with them in one way or another. The difference between sales and marketing is, sales basically has to close the deal with the buyer, whether it's digital or wholesale. They've got to convince a buyer to take the stuff and put it on their shelves. Yep. It's us to create demand for it in marketing, and then also through get it off the shelf and into your closet.
Yeah, I think what frustrates people that are so sales focused is that marketing is just a longer lead time, and you got to build that relationship and build that community around the brand. So there is that brand awareness, like you said, so smart to work them down that funnel that's ever so important.
I just want to, say, you were the first one to say funnel, not me. Okay.
Exactly. Sounds good.
I wasn't going to talk about the funnel today, but yes, part of it.
It's the necessary evil of what we do, right? So, man, so much has changed in the last 12 months in marketing, especially when it comes to what I've been saying over and over again, like the digital revolution has fast forwarded 5 years in the future, in my opinion, and people are starting to wake up. I think just to give you a quick anecdote from my side, I had a lot of, brands that would ghost me for the last couple of years. And now all of a sudden the CEO wants to hop on a call like, oh, social first marketing, we need to really take this seriously all of a sudden. So I know everybody's kind of looked inward and said, how can we make sure that we stay relevant, but also make sure that our revenue streams are as, tight as possible. When it comes to Eagle Creek and JanSport, like what are some of the changes that you guys saw? I'm sure starting right around early March, and then just how it's gone almost the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, it's been a wake-up call for brands who maybe didn't have a digital first model, right? And who really, sort of acted and responded to that wholesale first model. We're all being forced to think digital first and to think hyper digital. I'll give us a little bit of credit at JanSport and Eagle Creek that we were already thinking that way before.
That was important. Yeah.
Really important. If you do know your consumer, which for JanSport is the 14 to 22-year-old Gen Z, right? And they're online and they're shopping more and more online. For Eagle Creek, it's more of that like millennial, like older millennial and early Gen Xer, and to a lesser extent, the boomer consumer.
Yep.
Yes, they were shopping more and more wholesale, but when it became more dangerous to be out, that community also started turning to online resources.
And more importantly, I think they, it educated that entire generation on how to do that, how easy it is. And that's huge for forevermore, right? Yeah.
Right. So we've been working hard on being approachable and relatable in that space, so for on TikTok, JanSport is, we are on TikTok as much as possible with influencers because that's where our consumers hang out. Yeah. And then trying to find a way to capture a 16-year-old's attention on TikTok has been our biggest challenge. For Eagle Creek, as much as I hate to say it, it's Facebook.
Yeah.
Still reaching them on Facebook. And that's okay. And that's a platform where it's working to offer what Eagle Creek offers, which is a really sustainable bag and, warranty and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolute evolution in the way brands come to market and sell and reach their consumers. The pandemic has absolutely accelerated it. And I'll go one step further, which is, giving you a little bit of peek behind the curtain to our brands, but stating the obvious as well. We're a back to school brand on one hand and a travel brand on the other. And both of those industries have been significantly affected by the pandemic. So not only are we forced to be hyper digital in our approach, both to marketing and sales, but also really dealing with a business climate that is not favorable to either one of the industries that we operate in. So
and I think your colleague under the VF Corp umbrella, Steve Lesnar, we've had on the show with over at the North Face, but he said some weird things starting to happen. Like you guys sold out of tents on the North Face, like in the first couple of weeks, because people were either tenting in their backyard or what's the only safe thing to do? Let's, hike up in the mountains and pitch a tent. So things like, like hiking and traveling in that regard and golf and different things that started to expand really quickly once the lockdown started as well.
So Steve hit it on the head. We had to pivot immediately. Back in March, Eagle Creek was planning a campaign about travel wellness and how travel actually improves your immune system and makes you healthier, as well as like opens the mind, right, to cultures and people. We immediately scrapped that in March, and we came up with a new campaign called Adventure Within Reach and started talking about things like car camping and finding a trail near your home, that you didn't know about before, getting the bike out again. And just, adventure could be, getting on your bike, your mountain bike, and finding a bike path in your city that you haven't been on before. That can be very adventurous for some people. As a result, our product messages went from rolling luggage, which no one was rolling luggage for most of the year, to duffel bags. And our duffel business went up 62% every year, in the triple digits. So Eagle Creek became less of a luggage brand in 2020 and more of a duffel brand, an organization brand with our Packet. We have a brand called Packet that's all about packing org and keeping your suitcase or your duffel bag organized, and then also backpacks. So we pivoted not only messaging, but the kind of product that we were talking about.
My favorite stat too, we ran some panels for the industry as well. That Steve was on one of those panels. Mike Manzo was the CMO over at Jersey Mike's, or still is, I should say. And he said, thank God that we had, Grubhub in place or DoorDash or whatever it is, because it went from 10% of the revenue to 90% of the revenue overnight. So to your guys' credit too, having those e-com and digital focused channels that were already kind of up and revving before, a black swan event like COVID-19 really saved a lot of companies. I'm sure saved brands underneath the VF Corp umbrella. Like it was, really important that people like you guys have laid that foundation, or it saved jobs, it saved livelihoods. It was a big deal.
I think agility is the key here, right? Both JanSport and Eagle Creek have been wholesale focused and continue to be focused on our wholesale business, and really appreciate how our wholesale partners have been working with us. But to be agile, to understand what consumers were looking for and asking for in 2020, and then to be able to deliver it was something that I think the brands who did that, were able to do that, came out, at least surviving it.
Right.
I just have to say something about Grubhub. I've been living on Grubhub. I am on Zoom now about 8 to 10 hours a day working from home. So to have my lunch delivered is kind of like a little boost.
I'm same. I'm a Postmates guy over here, but I've ordered more than I ever have before for sure. I would love to, we can jump around a little bit here, but I would love to dive into your unique perspective when transitioning from entertainment television to apparel. So I guess the first question is, what was the main difference? Because you went from Nike to Fox and then over to VF Corp or JanSport Eagle Creek. So what was the biggest wake-up call? Or what was the biggest difference when you went from Nike into entertainment, linear television, that just kind of wow, this is different now, or maybe it wasn't as different?
No, it's a great question. And I like to use this question to encourage people who are coming up in marketing to be really open-minded about the industries that you're willing to play in. So my first job in communications was in broadcast TV. I started as an intern with Fred Rogan at KNBC.
Yeah, Fred Rogan. All right.
Yeah, in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And ended up taking an associate producer job up at KGW in Portland, Oregon.
Nice.
And I thought I was going to be in TV for the rest of my life, but Nike was nearby and kind of came calling. And I ended up doing a PR job for Nike, which was an amazing experience and led me into this apparel marketing zone. Well, in footwear. Mostly at that time, I was mostly doing footwear. So footwear and apparel, I stayed there for over a decade.
Yeah.
And I went to Fox to kind of meld the two industries together. So going to Fox was kind of like going back to broadcast. And it was a really great experience to take that PR and brand marketing experience, package it with broadcast, and work on big properties like the English Premier League, FIFA World Cup. And so at that point, it was really marketing not so much a physical product, but a licensing partnership and a show or talent on our shows. So it was different. It was a little bit more, less of a physical thing and more of marketing an idea, right?
Yeah.
A big global sport.
Also too, when it's like your IP and sometimes not like you don't own it, it's more of rights too, right? It's like a different way to tap into an audience that's already been cultivated maybe by a different network because now you have the rights. Like it's interesting when it's not like a product that you own and developed yourself too. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Those are big sports marketing deals too. And it comes with a ton of responsibility to really that property and to give the fans what they're looking for. You cannot create a shoddy broadcast for an English Premier League game.
And too, like, the big rights deals are coming up in the next year, 2022 for NFL rights and things like that. But those leagues are asking questions like, how are you going to extend our brand? How are you going to help our league? Like they want to know the marketing plan. They want to know what you're going to do to, get a younger audience, all those different things as well.
Yeah, tell them to make their athletes more available.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
If that's who the fans want to see.
What's a common mistake you think people make when they are maybe all the way down from a small business, mom and pop shop, all the way to the Fortune 500 brands that you've seen in this space?
Failing to innovate would probably be the biggest mistake that I see people making. So I was a consultant for a little bit too after Fox. Was kind of trying to figure out, if I wanted to stay in TV or move back into sports marketing. And so I went out on my own and did a little bit of work for Fox independently, Nike as well. But I also worked for some smaller brands at that time. And what I noticed was some of the folks who were being frustrated because they weren't getting the brand recognition that they needed, or maybe their advertising wasn't working. They just weren't innovating. They weren't understanding what their consumers wanted or needed and then changing their model to really meet those needs. One thing I'll give to Nike, as long as I've known that brand and they're still doing it today, is they're always using consumer insights, science, data to create something really new and different, at times disruptive. So they not only serve up what consumers think they want, but they're also leading consumers to a place they didn't even know they wanted to go. And so you're going to see like the most, and Nike's not the only one who does this, don't get me wrong. I mean, Adidas has been doing some phenomenal things with running shoes. The North Face is doing unbelievable things with apparel technology and weather resistant technology. Now they have a new trail running shoe that's pretty amazing out there too. So you've got to innovate. And if you're not innovating, why should people reach for something that's not new, different, and really cool?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, over the last 12 months across, I'll say JanSport and Eagle Creek, what's the one thing that just surprised you during this time that now you guys maybe are even going to implement going forward just based on where the world was the last 12 months?
So the way our team is working has surprised me in a really beautiful way. I questioned the work from home model, the full-time work from home model before we were forced into this model. We had 1 day a week where everyone would work from home. And I was always kind of wondering, like, is this person like on the couch? Are they tuning in? And what I found is that we are productive. We are we are creating a community together that is probably more relaxed. We're letting each other into each other's lives. We've got dogs and kids on
You're sharing your marathon, medals in the background. It's like you get a peek inside. Yeah.
I want everyone to know how competitive I am.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so the work from home model has forced us to focus on business continuity through a Zoom and digital communication model. It surprised me. We're doing a great job. We miss the connection, the human connection, but we are finding ways to, communicate faster. We are our agility with, IMing and calling people quickly on Zoom to solve a problem. It's working. So that has surprised me. I think the other thing that's surprised me, although we were waiting for it and planning for it, but I'm surprised how quickly it happened. Our evolution from a wholesale-driven model to a D2C model has just been unbelievable. It's been an unbelievable opportunity. So we're really seizing that. We're trying to create more opportunities for people to come into our environment online to jansport.com and eaglecreek.com. So that's been pretty special to watch our traffic go up and to watch the engagement.
Yeah, I'm curious if you can share, what was your wholesale to e-com, I guess split maybe before March of 2020 and then after? I'm assuming that's increased quite a bit.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't give that information out.
All good. But again, I'm assuming every brand that I've talked to, though, that they've seen definitely record numbers going more towards e-com and own platforms. So
I'll tell you, one of our top wholesalers for JanSport, and I won't name the brand, but before the pandemic, their wholesale model was about 91% of what they did, and it's gone down to about 80%. So that's a pretty big shift.
Yep.
So I think that brick and mortar will always have a very strong place in what we do. It's still, people still do like to shop, but it is, it's a digital forward model for most of us when it comes to shopping. The other surprise I would say is how platforms like Amazon, big marketplaces, Amazon, Target, Walmart, even Home Depot have really found their niche finally. I mean, Amazon's been obviously accelerating for quite a while now, but
82% of U.S. households have Amazon Prime. I can't get that number out of my head. Anyway, sorry.
8 out of 10. It's too easy.
That's insane.
Too easy. Yeah. And
I saw that stat come across my timeline when Jeff Bezos announced he was stepping down as CEO. I'm like, that is to create a recurring revenue model in 82% of U.S. households. That's every marketer's dream, right?
Absolutely.
So would love to get into any successful campaigns. You mentioned TikTok, which I think is super interesting. Obviously, I think 40% of TikTok users are in that 14 to 20-year-old demo. You mentioned JanSport as well. So maybe TikTok or maybe outside TikTok, any successful social campaigns that you guys have ran recently that has really surprised you or has just done well?
Yeah. So when the pandemic hit in February, early March, we had a back to school campaign planned that looks nothing like what we actually came to market with. And we started talking to some friends at Juve Consulting. They, I don't know if you've heard of JUV Consulting out of New York City. So Ziad Ahmed, good friend of mine and has become a good business partner as well. And, we met him in Denver for lunch and he was like, I'm not going back to school. He's a CEO of Juve and he was at that time a sophomore in college. School, they're telling me not to come back. And, we're like, Ziad, we need to talk to the consumer. We need to talk to Gen Z right now about what's going on. Yeah. Because we're hearing more and more kids are being told, don't come back to school. We're going to be e-learning for a while. So we immediately launched a TikTok challenge called Unpack That Challenge. And we partnered with World Central Kitchen, Jose Andreas's group, to donate backpacks to deliver food to those communities where kids had been forced into e-learning. And maybe they were getting most of their nutrition from school. And now he and his organization were starting to distribute food in communities like Los Angeles and New York and Boston, Chicago. And so we wanted to provide a vessel, provide a little bit of help. So we donated 10,000 backpacks to World Central Kitchen and launched a TikTok challenge to try to get young people involved in donating those bags. Like for every person who did the challenge, we'll donate a bag. We donated them anyway, but We had upwards of 20 million views on the hashtag.
Wow.
And this was early TikTok. And this was also before brands were really starting to spend money on the platform, or at about the same time that brands were starting to convert on the platform. But we were early. And Unpack That Challenge, we asked young people to show us their new at-home workstation and unpack your JanSport or any backpack that you would normally take to school. Unpack it, show us your bedroom or a desk. Or
people love a good flat lay, so why not?
The flat lay does well.
Yeah.
But, they were pulling stuff like their cat out of their bag or their guitar or toilet paper, make it really fun. Yeah. We hired influencers and it really took off. So that was one that we were proud of. Again, being early was a benefit. And then we scrapped our back to school campaign and decided to talk to young people about mental health, which after consumer insights work that we had done told us that was one of the most important things on their minds. It's like, how am I going to survive this isolation, this FOMO, this, I don't want to look at a screen all day to learn. I want to look at it for social media, but not necessarily to learn biology. So we launched Lighten the Load, which was a kind of a resource, kind of a get real resource for young people who were struggling with mental health and with all the changes that they were forced into because of the pandemic. And that was an amazing campaign.
That's awesome. Yeah. That mental health is it's always important, but obviously during all this craziness the last year, that's awesome. You guys were able to do that. It's funny because when I was in school, I graduated in 2005, but JanSport was the backpack to have. All the cool kids had a JanSport. And then I never really went back and looked at it because I'm not in high school anymore, obviously, but I was doing some research prior to this podcast and you guys were ranked the number one high school backpack that every high schooler wants in an article that I read. And I'm just curious. I mean, you've worked at Nike and now JanSport and two brands that just remain cool and keep that coolness, if that's a word we want to use, within that generation. So how do you think JanSport's been able to kind of not just be a trend that lasts 10 or 20 years, but it's continue to be the go-to brand that never gets old?
It's a great question. I think authenticity has a lot to do with it. So I'll give you two examples, one from Nike and one from JanSport.
Yep.
When I was at Nike, I knew the ethos of the brand from the first week I was there until I said goodbye. And that was, that if you provide great gear for athletes, you don't even have to think about their gear so that it makes them feel better, perform better, and it is what they need. If you can create new innovations for athletes, then you're probably going to win. And then get that product onto the best athletes in the world, the biggest platforms in the world, and you're going to let consumers know.
It helps if you have Michael Jordan and LeBron and Kobe, of course.
Well, and that's a strategy, right?
Yeah, of course.
In the very early days, it was Coach Bowerman out of Eugene, Oregon, and Fontaine. And how do we make a waffle sole that Steve can run in, and it'll be lighter and give him a little traction on the track. Yeah. So those principles were woven throughout the company culture, and we really adhered to them. So fast forward to VF. VF is a purpose-led company whose values are very well known by its employees. Now, VF is the parent company of JanSport and Eagle. And if you embrace, hopefully, and I do, embrace those values, understand the culture of what VF is trying to create. And then that authenticity is driven down through each brand in its own way. JanSport has its own, culture and its own ethos. We are we're rooted in adventure. Our original founder, Skip Yowell, was a mountain climber and an outdoor guy, but he started building bags that were highly, highly durable. And they weren't going to fail you. They were going to get your stuff from point A to point B, dry with a leather bottom, on the right pack, and highly durable and affordable and relatable. And that remains today. We make bags. We're known for being the most durable bags out there, but we're known for being price accessible. We're not a value brand, but we're not a luxury brand.
Yeah.
But we are a brand for everyone. We are, whether you're a jock or a an e-girl or a car enthusiast, whatever your style is, or whatever your identity is, JanSport has a bag.
It's funny, one book that you may have read, but I'm reading right now is by Jim Collins called Built to Last. And over the last 100 years, they look at the difference from visionary companies and great companies. Like great companies could be Zenith or Columbia Pictures, but visionary companies are Sony and Disney, right? And that's why I think it's so interesting you said that, because what they do in the book after thousands of hours of research is the core values and purpose of the organization never changes, like you just said, and everything else does. Like everything's open to change, everything's open to innovation, like you said, everything's open to pivoting and trying new sectors. But if the core values and purpose never changes, you get your whole team to buy in, and that's what really makes a difference. I think in this, the companies they really researched in this book, from 1926, they grew 6,500x or something like that over that course of time. So it's really funny you said that, because I'm reading about that right now, and it goes to show, I think that's what makes Nike and JanSport kind of part of that visionary rather than maybe the competitor. Reebok is great, but they're not Nike.
So it's interesting you should mention purpose, because JanSport came to a crossroads semi-recently in the last few years where we really wanted to know, who are we? Like, why do we come to this building every day and turn on the lights? Like, who is JanSport? Is JanSport a brand for everyone, so inclusive to everyone? Or is it something else? And why do people buy JanSport? And at that point, why are not as many people buying JanSport? So like, what's the secret sauce here? Did we lose it? So we went to this deep dive of, what is the purpose of our brand, and where are our values, and, what is our voice? So we kind of rewrote the book on it. I can say we edited the book. We didn't write the book. We updated.
Evolve.
Yep, we evolved from the same early values, but our purpose is to be an ally. That's where we landed. If you think about a 16-year-old, their backpack goes with them to school, or right now from the kitchen to their bedroom or whatever. But also on the weekends, it goes with them to maybe a day camp or on a hike. Maybe they're going to go visit a family member. They take the backpack and they shove their stuff in it. That backpack is with them all the time. And our purpose is to be an ally through all of that. If young people also, their identity changes from freshman year or 7th grade through senior year or like into college. They might start as a jock. They might end as as an academic, or whatever, a musician. And as their identity changes, as they figure out who they are, we are still there. We're still their pack. They might choose a different color. They might have a different print. They might choose a different style, but JanSport is their ally. So our tagline is always with you. And we feel like we've been with students since 1967, and we're always.
I never thought about that. Like the backpack is like literally on your back for like 12 hours a day, go from the school bus to the house to this, picking it up at lunch and the whole thing. It's very interesting. I know you don't work with them as close as you do, JanSport and Eagle Creek, but Supreme obviously is underneath that VF Corp as well. And I just think that this brand should be taught in every marketing class across the nation, what they've been able to do. I feel like if I put a Supreme sticker on this shirt right now, it automatically becomes a $1,000 t-shirt, which is great. But are you guys able, I'm sure you do, like just learn from other brands in your portfolio too, because what they've been able to do back to Nike with just celebrities and making that just like that brand so cool, and so also too, like releasing different different products with limited releases, much like Jordan did with Nike. Like it's kind of interesting how these two companies are similar, and you've been at both of them, but I'm sure you're at awe what Supreme's been able to do and kind of be part of that pop culture lexicon.
Yeah, they're brilliant. I mean, they've taken influencer and partnership marketing and just like taken it to the next level. But that kind of goes back to what I was saying about being disruptive and being innovative. They took a kind of a not that original model and just like blew it up. So they're a new neighbor at VF. I don't know them at all. I have to like take them a cup of sugar.
Can we start like a mastermind class, like a mastermind call? I'll be with you and I can join it. Like I'd love to pick their brain. Yeah.
We do have, it's not that hard of a formula to grasp, but it really takes patience.
And everybody has to be on the same page in the organization. Like, why are we doing this? Like, is this that important? Like, yes, we have to stay on course here.
confidence, risk taking. I mean, you don't adopt the Supreme model without having a pretty big, without having a lot of courage.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
They've been amazing.
That's awesome. Well, I think we could go for hours and hours, but I know we have to wrap up here shortly. So I wanted to get some quick hits here towards the end. One book, newsletter, blog, anything that you read frequently that you would recommend all marketers to take a look at?
So I've been a longtime listener of the Tim Ferriss podcast. I think
Me too.
Some very interesting guests, and some of them are like not right in my wheelhouse, but I always learn from him. So I love Tim Ferriss, the All In guys from Silicon Valley over the All In podcast. You listen to those guys. They're fun. They talk a lot about.
I bet your podcast listening has gone down though, since you have been on those planes for 2 hours each way.
But I run. So if I'm doing solo miles, I'll put the podcast in.
By the way, this is kind of like super geeky, but like if I work out and listen to a podcast, like if I'm able to learn and get fitter, like that's like a pretty cool combination in an hour or less.
It's the trifecta.
It's your double. Yeah, exactly. Trifecta. I'm not the only one that think that's cool. Have you read Tribe of Mentor too, by Tim Ferriss?
I have not.
Yeah, that's a good one too, because he interviews like 200 of the most influential people and he asks them the same 6 questions, but there's a lot of good value in there.
I'm loving the Hoka NAS Elite group out of Flagstaff. They are a high altitude, long distance training group. Hoka NAS Elite. Hoka is a running shoe and apparel brand, and they're killing it right now with some of the athletes that they have that they're sponsoring and doing some great things.
Very cool. I know you were talking to my producer, Will, and you were all about Asana. You're just like, let me talk about Asana a little bit. But any favorite marketing tool that, maybe that's it, but any marketing tool that you think has really helped you be able to do your job better?
Well, Asana allows our e-commerce team and our brand team to come together in one place and to move projects forward, to take a look at creative as it's being developed and then take a look at updates. So that helps streamline our workflow.
Yep.
So I do love Asana for that reason. And then we can leave messages there and IM each other. Tools. So, I mean, Zoom, I know it sounds cliche, but Zoom has been a lifesaver, and the IM feature in Zoom allows us to just get quick answers. I can video call someone and get a lot done in that way. And then probably my number one tool right now, just in the work from home setting, is like pants that don't have a button.
No more pantsuits. That's enough. Yeah.
Yoga pants. Great tool.
That's awesome. Any advice you have for up and coming marketers? I mean, your trajectory has been pretty awesome. Like I said, working at big brands, Nike, Fox, VF, Corp. But any advice for maybe the younger marketer coming up?
Yeah, I would say just be really open-minded about how to communicate with who you're trying to communicate with. We tend to get into these marketing formula silos, do this many posts per day and spend this much on media.
Yep.
And TikTok's the big thing now. Let's find out how to buy media on TikTok. Guess what? Buying media on TikTok right now isn't really that great of a formula.
Yep.
Are those media dollars, how they're being leveraged? Clubhouse is the new thing. We got to get on Clubhouse. Like, don't freak out about all the new digital innovations there are out there. Get to know your consumer. And I'm not saying be old school at all. Figure out how to be innovative, creative, and disruptive in your industry and in your job. Bring the new ideas, take some risks, but don't freak out over all the new technology.
FOMO. Watch out for FOMO.
Watch out for FOMO. Those brands who are getting the most recognition out there right now, they're spending a lot of money.
Yes.
Most of us don't have that kind of budget.
Well, also too, like I always say to clients, I'm like, you guys haven't even figured out your Instagram strategy yet. So don't worry about Clubhouse right now. So it's like, let's build the foundation of the home before we worry about what color the granite countertops are going to be, which that's the Clubhouse or the really cool TikTok strategy. But yeah, I think that's such great advice. I think so many people, they have all these social media platforms and they're kind of operating at 27%. Like, why don't you get a couple like at 90%? Then you can move on to the next one, especially if
Absolutely.
money is our budget is obviously, not endless or unlimited.
Which none of us are. I mean, I work for brands, but I can tell you fiscal management, key component of everything that I've done. So except for like at Nike or sometimes marketing, we were able to do anything we wanted.
Especially, I think the worst economy since 1946. Like everybody's been looking at that budget line and making sure that's what's going to be interesting. I think some of the, I guess I'll call them old heads, but maybe at the very top of the totem pole for most brands, they just kind of did the same thing over and over again. Even Super Bowl commercials, we always do a Super Bowl commercial. That's just what we've always done. And it's made everybody kind of look like, well, is that the best use of our funds? Is there a better way to do this? Can we be more productive on the online or social space? Can we reach our consumer better? So I think it's brought up a lot of questions to some of the old schoolers that just did the same campaign over and over again, because that's simply what was always done.
We should all be asking ourselves those questions right now. Is the big $10 million Super Bowl ad the best way to actually create the emotional connection that we're trying to make with the end user or with the consumer? I'm not sure about that. Although if I had the money, I'd love to do a Super Bowl ad too.
Yeah, it's more just like it's a mic drop moment. Like, yeah, we got a Super Bowl ad. So, and then I hate to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like any predictions you have here over the next year, just as we go in the future with marketing, how it's going to social, especially in the apparel and product space. I'd love to get your thoughts on just where your focus is and where you see everything going here in the future.
I mean, I think social commerce and platforms like Instagram, Facebook, maybe even TikTok will become more commercial and will become commerce platforms going forward. I don't think Amazon is going to be without competition forever. Other platforms are figuring it out. We're already using Curate to sell on Instagram, and a lot of other people are too. But I think these big social platforms that have billions and billions, hundreds of billions of users, we're going to figure out that commerce combination that allows you to shop our goods while you're being entertained with one or two clicks. I think that's the future.
Like Amazon has been really the equivalent of the mall now, but it's just online. So the social becomes some of those big box retailers that you can, put JanSport in and have them fly off the shelf.
Absolutely. So marketplaces, I think, are going to become more sophisticated, more entertaining. The content's going to become richer, and brands like ours are going to figure out how to make it an environment where you really do want to purchase something, open the wallet.
Love it. Well, Monica, thank you so much for the conversation. This was amazing. Well, we'll have to do a part 2, maybe in person, once things open back up, since we're so close to each other here.
I would love to. Anytime. I'm a quick drive away from La Jolla.
At the very worst, get a coffee one of these days. Yeah, La Jolla Shores. Like it's not a bad place to be. So thank you so much for your time. And we appreciate all the value you dropped on this episode.
Thanks, David.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, there she is, Monica Rigali, the global head of marketing and e-com. Great conversation. I feel like I had all these questions written down. I know we only had like an hour to jam all this in, as we usually do. So tried to give you guys the top line answers that I thought we would all want to hear from. But very interesting stuff. And, I knew she worked at Nike. I didn't know she spent a decade there, but what an interesting place to kind of get your master's in marketing, if you will. Spending 10 years at Nike and then use that as you go forward. And I'm sure she applies a lot of that to JanSport and Eagle Creek. But yeah, if you're going after the Gen Z, it's probably all TikTok all the time for JanSport these days.
Yeah, like you said at the end, I think you guys could have gone on there for forever just about the actual tactics to use to try to speak and listen and engage. I thought some of the things she said about the mental health campaign they did via TikTok was really interesting, a really smart strategy. But yeah, she's definitely a marketer who knows what she's doing and has a ton of background experience.
Well, that's important too. It's like if we're going to be authentic to our community or to our demographic that we're trying to reach, well, we know that, the 14 to 22-year-olds are really struggling with mental health right now. So not only should we target them like, hey, 14, 22-year-olds, like, we're cool, you should buy us. Like, why don't we give back to that? And that kind of develops that relationship, and that, again, it's a give take, and especially on social, it's a two-way conversation. And it just builds brand loyalty, brand trust, all those things that I think the right brands do. But then also her take, like I said, we talked about in our vision meeting, our STN meeting too, Will, about that built to last visionary companies and what you can learn from it. But same thing. I mean, if the core values and purpose are super, super baked into the core of the employees and to the company, and you're open to have everything else around that change, you end up, I think, being pretty successful. And that's what we've seen from Nike, Disney, Nordstrom's, all the big brands, including, I'll put JanSport up in that category too, because they found just the longevity of that brand awareness and that brand edge, if you want to call it, has been pretty incredible, at least anecdotally for me over the last 33 years.
I mean, the results speak for themselves. You said it at the top. When you were in high school, JanSport was a cool backpack to have, and it still is all these years later. So, not that many years. I didn't mean it like that. But JanSport is here to stay, and they've been there for a long time.
All right. So, once again, thank you, Monica, for coming on the program. That was great. She's about 30 minutes here from the STN headquarters. So we're going to have to set up, like I said, an in-person. We're going to start doing the part twos, I think, Will. I think we're talking to a few of our favorite guests because sometimes an hour is not long enough to get into the nuts and bolts and really get inside baseball and some of the marketing and social tactics of these big brands.
TikTok and Clubhouse, all that stuff wasn't huge a year ago. So, time for some part twos.
Yeah, exactly. Marketing changes so much that there's all brand new questions we can ask. So, all right. As always, we want to thank Dave Ferk and producer Will for all their help and support to set the podcast up each and every show. Want to thank you, the listener. Make sure if you can do us a favor, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever podcast platforms you would like to check us out on. The video version is on YouTube. 5 stars on iTunes. We really appreciate that, as this podcast is brought to you absolutely free. That being said, this has been yet another edition of the Business Social Podcast. My name is David Brickley. This has been powered by STN Digital.